Welcome to RGU TV. I'm here today with Aleksandra Kusowska.
Hi, welcome.
Could you tell us more about yourself and your background?
So my name is Aleksandra Kusowska. Some of the people will know me as Aleks from the performance stage in the city, I think. I'm a recent graduate. I still doing the summer course between RGU and Look Again Gallery. I explore in my practice varied theories which highlights mostly psychology. I originally come from Poland. I was raised in there. So yeah, I work in the various media, performance, moving image, paintings, photography. I play in a band as well, so I employ sound in my practice. I enjoy social engaged art, and that's where I think my practice will be going to as well. I employ dance in my artworks, and I like poetry, and I write poetry, and I perform spoken word sometimes.
Your room is really impressive, by the way. Honestly, it's absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed it. So let's see, there's a description here before we go in the room. So we'll just kind of go through the description and kind of break it down a bit to kind of make more sense to people that won't understand things like transgenerational trauma and stuff.
Sure.
So what we do is we'll start there. So it says Aleks practices explore various theories as in the transgenerational trauma. Could you kind of break that down a little bit for people that aren't really aware of it?
Yes, transgenerational trauma, I got interested in that term. It's simplifying, it's transfer the pains from traumatic experiences from one generation to another one. And it's done subconsciously, most of the thing. And I was interested in healing at what are the background, what causes it. So that's why it went into the mistreatment during the war times and occupied countries. And yeah, and I was interested in art therapy as well. So that all goes together in exploring that term.
How would you explain art therapy?
For myself, it was maybe because I'm an introvert as well. Going into yourself and being connected through your drawing, subconsciously or consciously exploring yourself. And yes, I think that's what it is for me and for most of the art therapies, being connected with yourself, yeah.
Okay, so it says here that your installation explores the healing from effects of war, mistreatment, and social disorder development under occupied countries in Europe. Do you want to explain it a little bit more?
Yes, I was focusing on a generation which is my generation, and perhaps all of us in the varied range. So it's a third generation after war, called war grandchildren, and the other name is vulnerability makers, and they often go back to the past because they explore the emptiness in them, and that is caused by being in occupied countries. And probably you know that subconsciously transferring pains and fears in the generations, and we coming back to it to explore ourselves a little bit more. So I wanted to capture that wandering and emptiness, but also of empowerment, because it's a broad subject, and it goes to many countries which were occupied and under the war, and many of us are experiencing it, and as well, you know, it actually is expressed in our works. When you look at the Polish artworks and that overpowerment or chaos, or there is on the other side that emptiness, and you know, that nostalgia, and that isolation, that, dislocation as well. So I think I was trying to bring them together, what we are trying to do, and what some of us are trying to do, and some of us were exploring in the terms of the psychology and artistic expression as well, and Polish artists as well. I think as well is it important to add about this stigma in the countries under occupation, and struggle with I think tolerance to the diversity, and I think equality and a woman. So I think that was important as well for me to depict in my exhibition.
So I've got your exhibition up here, and this was the first time that I went into a room and I was instantly, genuinely excited, because it's very atmospheric. You've somehow managed to create a digital space, but it's incredibly atmospheric. I think it's the choice of colors and stuff. There's the darkness, the corridors. Then you have the arrows pointing a certain way. You're pointing a certain way, and it builds a sort of anticipation as to what's around the corner. So do you want to talk me through that, your choice of color scheme and things like that?
Yes, in a physical exhibition, material which I've used, it was very tactile, and visitor could move this, or it can be moved even without visitors' knowledge, because it was very catchy. And then the shadow was moving because I was working with the lights, and the shadow was moving on a wall. So it was another experience which was aimed to the physical exhibition. And I stand into the challenge of replacing that tactile experience with something different. So because I work with the color, light, sound, I thought to make a tunnel which was dark, which was aiming to highlight other senses. Because I couldn't use the tactile sense in an exhibition because it was digital, I started to experiment with making a space which would sharpen other senses before entering the main room. So I was thinking about the dark tunnel, because, when you're entering the dark, all the senses are a little bit, closing, and everything, it's highlighted a little bit more. So I think it was, so I was going with that idea. However, the tunnel was very dark, and I had to work out how I will do the tunnel as much as accessible for everybody who is entering, without the knowledge how to actually, move. So here was as well another challenge to make it as easy as possible to any audience which is visiting the room. So that was the idea of, sharpening one of the elements of, pointing. So, to lead the audience, and, I was working actually with the kids and the teenagers, and actually with the elderly. So they use as much as simplicity, on the computer, but they've managed to go to the main room, and I was happy with it. So that was the idea, and the teenagers really liked it because they could use it like they use it in a game. So, and then there was my son, which is, I'm a single parent, but my son is 10 years old, and he was like, "Mom, can I actually crouch in here?" So that was another idea, for the, that could be used, in some kind of a form in it. So, so although I had some, a little bit worries, because of the tunnel, because you need to actually move a little bit, because you don't see that somebody will not, will go further. But I think it worked, and I liked it, and I liked it that teenagers liked it, because that's another point which I look in the role of the art, and how is it, you know, in the educational system, and you know, how does it affect, you know, us. So yeah, so that's the whole point between it, behind it.
It's very impressive. It's a very, very strong start. And so, like I said, the first thing I felt was excited. I noticed the color scheme was intentionally chosen a certain way to kind of build up the sort of anticipation and stuff as well. Then there was the image to the right as well, which was yeah, a very nice image. It's pointing us in the direction. Do you want to tell us more about the image? It's obviously
Yes.
yourself, yeah.
So I actually made a physical installation in my space, which I had available at that time during the lockdown. And so I've made a scene, and I was working with the shadows. So because I was working with judgmental, stigmatized environment, you know, it was very important for me to make that pointy form. So I stand between it, and I kind of make it very not to visualize for the audience how it would be looking a little bit closely on the beginning. So that's the story behind the picture, you know. And as well, you know, I wanted to make it as big as the audience. So it kind of was inviting. In a physical exhibition, I was intending to do some kind of a performance, which as well I was employing in the moving image. So that was a kind of my invitation to, there you go there, and that would be as well employed in the kind of a performance in the exhibition on the opening and during the days of the exhibition. So, which I of course I couldn't do it because of the COVID. Yeah.
You definitely still made an incredibly impressive room, though. When I first got into your room, as I was going through the corridor, I noticed everything was intentional with the colors in the corridor and everything. We're turning a corner. And I was very, very excited, actually. I was really excited. And you really set up the an amazing atmosphere. We'll talk about the picture on the left when you first walk around the corner. Do you want to tell me more about the artwork there?
So it's a painting. It's a painting.
Yeah.
It's a painting on a wooden board. 100 centimeters by 100 centimeters. And the contours, the forms, the shapes, are done by the soldering iron. So it's a wooden board. And because I was working with the dance and the choreography and the music and the text of the music of Polish songs as well. So I was doing a choreography with the abstract and how I dance. Okay. So I wanted to combine those two. So I actually covered the burned wooden board with the glue gun to protect the contour while I'll be dancing and making marks on a painting. And I did that, and while I actually detached the glue gun, I was thinking on the forms and the shapes, and I was working as well with the shadows. So I was working with the scrim, so the bits which are hanging. Yes. And actually the bits from the painting are put on the scrim to make another part of the shadow to connect the whole room together. So yeah, and it depicts forms in a way of violence, abuse, chaos, dispute, war. There are forms, you know, of the gun, of shouting, of fighting. So that was a kind of a discussion on the painting, and as well, you know, the colors in the painting were very much to depict the bruise, the violence, and the picture will be more impactful.
How would you describe the installation in the center of the room?
I started working with Scrim last year. Scrim is, you know, in my practice, I like using found materials. So wooden board was a found material. The scrim is some material which is joining the stuff. So the part which was inside was in a form of a DNA, and it was intended for a viewer to move around it, and when it's inside to feel being entrapped. And that was a kind of a reflecting on a past. So as well, I did the shadows from that elements from the paintings, and it was a playful putting a shadows which was a different violet size, which was overpowering, which was like a haunting atmosphere. As well, in the physical installation, the viewer could be playing with a torch, and then those elements will be getting bigger and smaller, and you know, more clear or more, you know, blurred. So it was a kind of a very interactive place for a viewer. Mm-hmm. But as well, suggesting that haunting and entrapment atmosphere.
So it would be fair to say that with your style of art and with your intentional use of textures and touch and feel and things like that, you've been quite restricted with it being moved to a website rather than a physical space, where obviously with things like performance art, you really need to kind of be there as well. So yeah, it's quite unfortunate that it's a digital space, but you've done an absolutely amazing job. It's really impressive.
Thank you. Took a lot. the installation, which is inside, it's formed from actually around 200 elements. Mm-hmm. So the viewer actually could move between it and feel the texture as much as I could, you know, put elements for rendering, because I had still a moving image and you know, a sound and everything and the light. So we were restricted very much to what we had to put. But actually the whole installation inside is made through 200 elements. So it took a lot of time as well. But I wanted to preserve the texture of the scrim, so actually the viewer could have as well that tactile experience to move through the detailed structure.
The large main wall, do you want to tell us more about that?
The large one. So yeah, I was restricted to what I had to render, so I couldn't put the moving image about, you know, like where the scrim is moving, so that the shadows are changing and the viewer can actually move the scrim and those shadows will be moving. So I had to, so I was restricted to put just the image. So I just choose the image from installation at home, and enlarged it, so it will be depicting as much. And then I was working with the light on the other side and with the elements on the scrim, so it depict the most in a realistic way the wall with the shadow, and how audience could experience it in some time, you know.
Do you want to tell us more about the video and how the video was made, how you chose the things that are in the video?
Yes, so a video was an experimentation with the colors. So I was doing research about the colors, and I was experimenting those, and while expressing a different themes in a moving image. There was artists which were inspiring me to do a story narrative piece. And my performance as well very often were like that. So in a video, there is a big influence of the colors to work with. And then there's a story, a narrative about recovery from mistreatment of traumatic experiences, and under the occupied countries, in a social anxiety, on a diversity, and half-truths, how the essays about the Poland, which was very inspiring and very open, about what was happening for real, what was actually did not said. And then exploring the psychology and how different mental health disorders are growing from it, you know, or because of the time they are not treated, so they are becoming very overpowering as well. I think it is the issue as well, which is very visible, and we are very struggling with it. Sorry about that. And it touches very much of a society. So the treatment and, you know, and going through that barriers and healing from it, it's maybe not the most pleasant thing to go through. So that's why the kind of atmosphere in the video as well, of many discussion about it within yourselves, and the critique and fighting, and that tension or shock atmosphere as well, you know, very much so. I wanted to reflect on a time. It's very visible in a very in many my performances. So it's either slowing the time or exposing the time in the various ways, in a different environment. Healing as well takes time. It's a very long process. It's exhausting process, and so I wanted to as well put it that I wanted to highlight the mainstream. So that's kind of a, you know, we need to go out from the barriers. We need to speak about it, really take action on a rather being together rather than, you know, fighting each other. So that was the message as well, and in that video, yeah. And I think I wanted to end it in a form of the sewing, because that was a kind of inspiration, sewing pieces together, and with that healing light and some kind of like a uplifting ending. There was a kind of an inspiration from the actually horrors in a horror story, but also there is a lot of inspiration from what I read, from the community which I see, from the people which I follow, from the artists which inspire me. So it's kind of like I wanted to kind of finish with a very uplifting touch. So that's what I was aiming in that video. It's a really good video. I thought that your whole room all the way through was fantastic. My video would be in the Aberdeen Art Gallery in the exhibition Coming Home, which actually went into the virtual gallery, which is still open. So so anybody who wants to visit, there is a plenty of artists. I think there is a more than 550 pieces of work exhibiting. So it's an exhibition Coming Home by the Aberdeen Artist Society. So I invite as well people to it. So yeah. What would you like to experiment with in the future? Oh, and definitely installation. So that kind of is my you know, finding the opportunities to do that. I definitely will be working with the media which I'm working on right now, which is, you know, performance art, moving image. But I'll be focusing that, you know, how can I do some kind of an installation from it, or how can I do from that research some feedback which I can give to the audience, give to the wider audience. However, my research will be focused on social engaged art, definitely on from reading and collaborations. I hopefully will find a way to collaborate with people which are in the psychology or in mental health or health institutions. So that will be my kind of path to go to.
Who would be your dream artist to collaborate with?
I think because my well, going into the social engaged art, I think Susan Lacey was very inspiring, and her writings, and very intelligent, smart woman. So yes, and people like Ai Weiwei work in as well. They are quite inspiring, and I would love to meet them. So I think that was a kind of artist, and Marina Abramovich. They are classics, but they are classics which oh my gosh, I think I would love to collaborate with them. Yeah. Or Gumley, Anthony Gumley. It's just the sculptures and the landscapes. Yes, so yeah, many of them. Yeah.
Now that you've graduated, what are your plans for the future?
From, oh my gosh, I think 2 years, or at least a year. I've got a very dear friend who is a writer and writes as well children's stories. So I'm doing illustration to those stories, and so that is as well my next step, which I'm doing right now, and it kind of goes, I don't know where it goes, but we are both quite excited about it, so we're just doing it. Yeah, so I think, and as well, I've got had a house exhibition, which hopefully will be going into the physical space in October. I hope I'm not wrong in here. So I'll be hopefully I'll be trying to work with the installation as well. So that is a plan for it. I've got a painting, so I've got a framed it, which is 100 centimeters to 100 centimeters a canvas, which I'm playing on painting a little bit related to the isolation and that epidemic period. So I'm working on it. So I would like to invite you to Grace degree virtual show, and as well my room. You can find the information about my practice and the links to my website, as well Instagram page and LinkedIn account. I hope you will have a good experience visiting me and all of my colleagues from this year. Thank you.